Welcome to Unfiltered Awareness, a raw and authentic exploration that delves into the realms of consciousness, self awareness, and transformation. Co hosted by Cilia and Lucie. Join us as we embark on thought provoking conversation that challenge the norms and expand our understanding. Each episode is an edited conversation where we journey into these topics. We're so grateful you're here. Now let's dive in.
Hello, and welcome to Unfiltered Awareness. We have already started chatting behind the scenes, so we've hit play and we're just going to dive into what we were talking about. So, we started talking about spiritual bypassing, and then we were talking about, I know there was a thought that was just at the tip of your tongue, Lucy, that you were about to share. Maybe you want to just go into that and we can.
Yes, yes, exactly. What I was talking about spiritual bypassing, and also there is big accounts on Instagram that would kind of highlight some mishaps and misbehaviors into the coaching industry. I don't like this word, but like coaching sphere, let's put it this way. But the
Mhm.
thing is, I'm always taking everything a pinch of salt, because if you are actually looking at their stories, they've been hurt. And where are they in the hurt, like the healing, that journey of them, like for themselves? Because
Mm,
we all have stories, but there is part of the, sometimes like we can just like, yeah, this, and it's like, have you been sitting with your emotions? Have you been trying to alchemize them, like, to move into a more state of love? Not saying that some people in the coaching sphere is not something, are doing something, some of them are really wrong, they are scammers and everything. But
yeah.
sometimes it's just like, we can highlight a scam but having no attachment to it,
Mhm.
if you know what I mean.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of emotion behind some of the really big accounts that share, which is fine. But you bring up a good point of like how far along are they in their healing? And for people who see it, who are very empathic like us, we see it and we're just like, ooh, like I don't want to hurt anyone with my business. Like I hope that doesn't happen, because we care about people. And I think the reason why this is really common in the coaching sphere is because anyone can become a coach, but not everyone should be a coach.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like Reiki. Like anyone can be trained in Reiki, but in my opinion, Reiki is a gift that you're either born with or not. I don't think it's something you can just decide one day I'm going to learn if you don't have the skills for it. That's just my own opinion on Reiki, which
Yeah,
might
it,
be
it
an
feels like a
unpopular
remembrance.
opinion.
No, I agree. Like, I agree with you. I actually had a conversation with a friend of mine around Reiki, because she was learning, like she went to get the paper, let's put it this way. But we had a
Yeah.
very insightful conversation. She's like, in some ways, like, where is the line of like us wanting to learn something, and what is actually a line for, like we were talking about that, is like, or is it really remembrance? Is it something that we already knew
Yeah.
and we just highlight it, like we just, like, I don't I'm French, so I went to a lot to ski, and I'm always using this analogy of like, when you go to this, like to the mountains, and I don't know how you call the ski, like slow skiing. It's basically your
Slopes. Oh,
s- no, it's just like you have like very thin skis and you're following each other, so you're actually creating tracks, so when you're
okay.
actually doing ski like this, when you follow the tracks, it's easy, but if you actually depart from this track, it's hard. So I don't know where I was going with this, but it's just feeling like it felt important to say that. But yeah, it was the remembrance. Sometimes like it's just, if you already had that, and like that within yourself, you just create, like rewiring this track that is quite fast to access to. I agree with you for sure.
Mhm. That's how I feel about coaching, honestly. I feel like I'm remembering who I am, not only with what I'm doing, but like with what we like it requires you to look at yourself. Like for example, we chose this topic today to talk about spiritual bypassing. And when I sat down to think about it, I'm like, "Oh, I spiritual bypass my husband all the time." And I
From
sat him
another
down and we had
subject.
a conversation about it this morning, and I'm like, "I am so sorry."
Oops.
Yeah, right, because right now we just moved and we live like it's an adjustment for him to get to work. It's like 3 different freeways, which
Wow.
I think we only use the word freeway in Los Angeles or California, but it's like 3 different highways that he has to take.
Mhm.
So he's like really tired and stuff, and he's been in, those moods where you're tired and frustrated, so you're complaining a lot. And I've had a really hard time like holding him in that. And I'm instead like, oh, but this, like trying to get him to think about what's positive or
Mhm.
going straight to the fixing rather than seeing him where he's at. And that's spiritual bypassing.
Yeah, actually, it could like we definitely have in stock a relationship podcast because we have not so much to say, but we do have our experience to share. Being
Mhm.
myself being in a relationship for 12 years and you being married and everything. I'm not married, but I'm in a long relationship with kids. But we have like yeah, I agree with you. Sometimes it feels like at some level it's like us trying to help someone soothe themselves instead of giving them the tools. I feel like it's what is spiritual bypassing is. It's like so
Mhm.
it's like, oh yes, look at the little blue birds. Instead of like, I'm actually hurt my leg. Like right now, it's like I really want
Yeah.
to feel this pain because this is what's happening. And seeing the birds will not take away that pain right now. It's actually going to delay and maybe hurt later on.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's interesting that you were saying, oh look, but at the same time it comes from a loving place, I believe,
Yeah.
you
Yeah, it
know.
does. But I
Yeah.
see that the problem is like, for example, with the breaking the leg, if you're just, "Oh, look at the birds over here," then what the person learns is like having a broken leg is wrong, so I'm wrong and I'm
Mm,
unworthy, and it just creates this negative
yeah.
stuff. Or like with the example with my husband, I told him like, "I realize how what I'm doing makes you feel very unseen and like I'm not in your corner." So
Mm,
that's the issue with it, is that you don't feel unseen. And I can even speak from experience of working with my first high ticket coach where I was spiritually bypassed and I felt very unseen. I see your I see the emotion growing in your face right now.
probably need full podcast for that. To unload this. Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I feel like it's the biggest part. And I believe with your coaching certification you're going through, you told me that you were training, and I know someone that been in your certification a year from like 2 years ago,
Oh yeah,
and
she was in the breathwork thing with us.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. And but like you're trauma informed. So there is like, we were actually talking about that in the last podcast about one of the books that I was I'm planning on continuing reading, and it's like it's definitely has been raised that it's actually not written trauma informed, which is definitely agree with that.
Mhm.
And the thing is, the big part of that is there is a lot of the spiritual bypassing is usually come from trauma, like not being trauma informed, not being taking the person where they are
Yeah.
at.
Yeah.
Because if you were to talk about my experience is that, yes, but my experience is I've been abused as a child. Like no, I haven't, but I'm just saying,
One
and going a
example.
bit far, so my apologies if that triggers anyone. But all of those kind of like your stories is. Oh, actually, sorry, I'm getting my head is getting raw. Anyway, I'll share that later.
Lots of
But
ideas.
no, it's the book I was talking to you. I think I think I told you about the last book I was reading, which was Divine Compensation
Mhm.
from Marianne Williamson. And even though I do like, I'm not finished with the book. I will finish it. I have a big sensation I have to give it away because I cannot hold it. But there is a part of it is definitely spiritual bypassing to my taste. Reading it, it's just like, oh yes, your past is your past, and then you can do a prayer, and this is going over, like and just focus on love.
Yeah.
I'm like,
A
I'm
lot of
all
the,
about
like
finding love in anything. I'm
mhm.
all about finding peace in everything, but sometimes healing has to happen. A prayer will not
Yeah.
shift everything. It's again talking about affirmation. If you want to know, like if you want me to get started with affirmation, we'll do another podcast. There's so
Yeah.
many of coming anyway, but yeah. It
I've
is that.
noticed there's a lot of spiritual bypassing in like the manifestation space.
Man
Uh,
infestation, you mean?
man infestation space. It's a little inside joke
Exactly.
between us. Listeners are like, what?
What? Yeah. No, it is
um,
true. Yeah. Because there is nothing wrong about like wanting to set a vision for yourself and setting plans and working towards it, but it feels like in some level in the manifestation sphere, like in the coaching, in some part of the coaching industry, it's like, oh, you are going to, you have to make you have to set an intention, and then you set a date and it will happen. Like, I want to have $1 million in the next 3 days, and so it is. Like, yeah, well, let me just unpack that. Do you have a business that can sustain you getting $1 million tomorrow?
do you have an offering
Do
that,
you have enough?
you know, do you have the relationships to have people like what the crazy thing that I feel like people don't talk about is like having a business is all about relationships. There's so much talk about posting on Instagram, making the offering, making the website, but so little talk about building relationships, which I feel like we're changing the subject. Sorry to do that.
No, no, I feel like it feels the same. It does feel in the same sphere, because yes, I agree with you. And at so many levels of like, oh yes, you just post, and like you go to bed and then you wake up in
Post
the
and
morning.
ghost.
Exactly, post and ghost, and then whatever. Which we have done sometimes. Like, you post and you
Yeah.
go away, like you do something else, which is fine. But the thing is, what really happens, like the big conversation that happens when you chatting with someone on DMs, or you having circles, like, I used, like, last year I offered, I don't know if I will open it again, but I used to offer free circles online, and this is how, like, some people connected. Like, there's still some people, like, remember, because I'll host a new thing, and they comment like, oh my god, I can remember you. And it's all about that. It's the big connection. And I feel like it's the same. I feel like if we were to come back to spirit, like I do, like weaving back to the spiritual bypassing, is it's the, like, there's the good, and there is like there is like good vibes and low vibes
Mm,
in some level. And it's also like
mm,
connections, like, oh, I don't want to connect with that person because she's so, like, she feels like low vibes or whatever. Or
yeah.
I don't want, like, oh, the person contact reach you out, and you might have like your own body was like, what do you want? Because like, I don't know about you, but like, I've got a lot of less now, but I used to get so many requests for some people wanting something from me, even though they didn't know who I was. And I feel like it's, again, it feels like it's very spiritual bypassing of like, you come to someone, you vomit on them, and you expect them to hand
Yeah,
them
the very
money.
first message is like, "Hey, I have a program. Sign up. Here's the link." It's like, who are you? Thanks for asking how I'm doing."
Maybe it's not even for me.
Yeah, right? What I found interesting now that you say that is I don't get those messages anymore, but I used to all the time, and I wonder if just over time with beaming those away and deleting them or, there have been times where I've had to respond. Like, I think there was one that I shared with you
Hmm.
where someone shared with me like, "Hey, I have a marketing program. I can get you in for free, and you're gonna learn about like no." I think she said like, You're not gonna learn broy marketing. It's like different than broy marketing." So I had to respond because I'm like, "This message is very broy. Like, why
True.
would I go to your thing even though it's free if you're saying it's not broy, but this message is super broy?"
Yeah.
Um, And we had a little bit of a back and forth, and this person really didn't appreciate what I said, but okay, I had to say something. Yeah. Um,
No, I agree with you, and I feel like it's like it's really weaved into everything. And again, I'm a woman, you're a woman as well, so I'm going to talk about my own experiences. But like, coming from being a woman and then being also conditioned, and sometimes it's not even like our current life, but it could be like passed through genes from our grandma and old
mhm,
generation, even your grandpa, your dad and his own family tree. But there is a lot of things that women shouldn't be doing that. Women shouldn't do that. Women shouldn't complain. Women should abide, should be tamed. So when we actually seeing a women, like again, I've worked a lot with coaches, with women coaches. This year has changed. I only worked with men this year. That's an intention of
Nice.
my own. I wanted to
Mhm.
kind of see what is on the other side. But the thing is, I feel like when we were working with women and we worked a lot together, I think we were in the same path of like empowerment. We don't use this word anymore because we feel like we passed that cap of like empowerment is the key. You have to find, open the door, and it's
Mhm.
behind you. It's there, but it's behind you. And there was a lot of like that empowerment journey feels like there is a lot of spirit, like they are targeting empower, like people seeking empowerment to use spiritual bypassing through them because they were easy
Yeah.
target, because
Yeah.
they want to be empowered. And the first bro code, again, quote unquote, of empowering is empowered women empower women. It is just like, oh, if I want to be empowered, I need to empower, like I need to see her as an empowered woman, even though she's actually like she's actually gaslighting me, but I'm going to
Mm.
give the other cheek because this is empowerment.
Yeah.
And that feels really kind of, for me, it's very icky. And there is a lot of like, I had to go through a lot of unlearning of empowerment because
Mhm.
there is a lot of yuckiness in empowerment. And I'm not sugarcoating that. If you're in empowerment, I love you. It's not about the tools that you use, is some of the shadow side of empowerment that feels icky.
Mhm. Yeah. And in those spaces, you can see why it creates kind of like this cult kind of vibe,
Hmm.
because no matter what that person, the coach is saying, because of in the name of empowerment, it's like, oh, if you're triggered, it's something within you. Oh, if it's not working for you, it's because you didn't work hard enough or you have limiting beliefs. And it's like, no, you just told me to like say I am worthy, I am worthy, I am worthy in the mirror 100 times every day. And like that's all you told me to do. Just an example, but and I have a very specific person in mind. I just don't want to name names.
I want to know the names, but we'll do it after. But yeah, like I feel like when you share that, this is a very big exhibition that I went through, because I don't use mantra. Like I don't use at least if use mantra, I might not, like I don't think I'm using mantra anyway. But like the some mantras like I am love, I'm abundance, I am blah blah, I'm worthy,
Mhm,
and I always felt like it was funny because when you say that, I was like, this is funny because I was rewatching some content repurposing I'm planning on posting, and I was
mhm.
sharing about that, like selling affirmation in front of the mirror and just saying this will not change everything about your life.
Yeah, it could be
Um,
helpful, but it's not the only
no, and it
it's
feels
not a
silly.
band-aid for
And it
everything.
does feel like, oh, you keep going. Like, oh, I feel silly. Keep going. You feel less silly. And I'm like, no, I still feel silly. Like, it doesn't feel right. And I would like, at the same time, going through spiritual bypassing was like, is it me because I'm French? And then
Mm,
one day went back inward, which oh wait, like that was a long time ago. Now, like knowing all of that, and the thing is, I'm learning with teaching with my clients. I always ask them questions like, but you don't ask the question. I'm asking the question. I'm not expecting the answer. Like I'm like I
mm,
have a set of answers. I'm expecting your answer. And even if wouldn't do that, who am I to judge? Who am I to say you shouldn't do it?
mhm.
You ask your higher purpose, your higher self, you ask inward, you ask your intuition. Follow that. She knows better than me for you.
Yeah, and that was a big
Mhm.
shift for me with working with coaches is like shifting from working with people who are like, I have the answers for you versus working with people who are like, I'm just guiding you to find your own answers,
Mm.
which that is the key. Like if someone has the answers for you, I think that's a red flag most times. That might be different if it's like a specific thing, like you're learning how to build a table. Okay, someone's going to have the answers for you because that's a very mechanical thing with math and geometry and whatever else is involved, physics. but within self-development, like, we're so complex as human beings. There's not a one size fits all, and like we all have different backgrounds. Like how you shared with your experience of spiritual bypassing, you're like, is it because I'm French? With me, it was like, is it because like I just like so traumatized from my childhood that I just can't I won't ever be a business owner? Like this person is telling me to do 100 things per day, post every day, do it was very like very penetrative way of business. It's the only word I could think about it, where it just was not serving my nervous system. And
Like
like,
when you were saying that, I could feel my neck tensing, and I remember living in that state for so long, being in the beginning of
yeah.
my journey in business, and also like when I transition into more the coaching, mentoring in the industry. I'm like, you have to do that, you should do this, and I'm like, since when should be something, you know? I'm like, I would never say to my clients like, those are some things that are interesting to explore, but you need to explore and see what works for you. The thing is, the world has been really highly um, conditioning us into doing things and pushing and doing things. And like, I I went to a circle not so long ago, and if you listen to me, please say that I do love you so much for everyone that was there. But it was like one of my dearest friends that was sharing like I'm living in a state of chaos,
Mm,
and when I was listening to her, like, that was me. But I would like, it
mhm,
was a circle. We were just listening, so it was just a listening circle. And I
yeah,
was like, that was me. And I feel like we've been so conditioned to know, like to think being living in a state of chaos, it's okay and it's normal, that
yes.
you keep going. And this is again for me, it's coming back to spiritual bypassing again, of like, because when she were sharing, like, we had like the turn and it came to me, and I didn't like, I was not like interjecting to her, but like it was like I was listening to them, and I was like, as I was listening to you all, I feel so weird, in the sense that when I'm listening to you, I feel like I'm not fitting in, because what you're experiencing, I'm not experiencing anymore.
Mhm.
And a part of me wanted to be like, maybe I should create chaos. Maybe I should do this because everyone is experiencing that.
Maybe
Because
I'm
I was the
crazy.
only one. Yeah, am I crazy? Like all of this kind of things. And it's interesting because that's also like, spiritual bypassing. The other side is authentic healing, authentic self and wholeness. And wholeness is also sometimes when we're going into our path to wholeness, wholeness is a circle. It's like it's
Hmm,
in grabbing everything, but it also makes that sometimes you could be alone in that circle for a while. And it's
yeah,
also the path to wholeness is also a path to pioneering. It's a path of being the first, maybe the first of your in your family, could be the first in your friends, could be the first in your district, whatever, or even online in the people that follows you. And that's extremely hard. Like, I don't use this word
yeah.
lightly, I don't use the word hard, because you feel like something is wrong with you,
Mhm.
because everyone is like acting of state of chaos, like pushing themselves, having sorry, I'm a mom. Like, I was saying 2 months. I'm going to finish with that very quickly. But like, I was a friend of mine, like two friends of mine that had kids, and I was like, oh, we booked them to go to soccer. And I
Mhm.
say, like, when is that? It's like Saturday. I was like, that's not even happening. Saturday will never be a thing in my house. It's like, and she was like both of me, them are looking at me like, well, good luck to not have to any activities on Saturdays. And in my whole body, I was like, but this is a decision I made. I'm
Yeah,
very happy with it. My kids are like, I want to do this. It's Saturday, it's not happening. That's like, we have other days. We can do so
yeah.
many things. I'm not doing anything with hours on a weekend. Not a thing.
Mhm, mhm.
But it is interesting that everyone be like, good luck, like holding up to that. And I'm like, I will,
I
you
don't need
know.
the luck, but thank you. What's interesting about that is how that spiritual bypassing is they just say good luck instead of asking, like, "Oh, I'm curious, like why do you do that?" Or "How do you
Mhm.
do that? Like, how did you come to this decision?"
It is interesting. You're right. I feel like it's just again it comes back to conditioning. I think it's
Yeah.
like, like the or like, oh, we hold you it. Good luck for you being outside, or like being the black sheep, in some level. Like,
Yeah.
and it's just who said that to me? Oh yeah, a client of mine shared with me her mom was going um to see her grandma, like her mom. It's and during the pandemic, mask was something, yeah, you had to wear, like, to see whole like elderly people. And the person, like the nurse that was there, that was like the caretaker in the elderly house, was saying, went to the person, like the person was like, I cannot deal with this mask anymore. She passed like, I'm putting my mask every day. It's just like, deal co-pump with yourself in some level. It was like, no, this is not normal. We have to stop saying, because it's your life. It should be mine. This
Yeah, that's
that
the thing, like, we're
relation.
we're here taking things so personal and seeing things from just the I and me and the
Yeah.
smallness of, like, an ego with these, like, you know how
Mm-hmm.
horses have these things here? They're called blinkers, so
Mm-hmm.
they only see what's in front of them.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like that, and I feel like we would have less spiritual bypassing in our societies if, like, mindfulness was a bigger part of our culture,
Mm-hmm.
like meditation and, like, really going inward and realizing that, because I feel like that kind of work opens up your heart and opens up your third eye to really see, like, wow, there's so many different perspectives of how you can live, and the way I'm choosing, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just my choice. And just like how someone else's way, even though it's totally different than mine,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean it's wrong. That's their choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know where I'm
Right.
going with that, but
No, I like what you were sharing, and the thing is, yeah, it's exactly that. Sometimes it's like, because I something doesn't mean that someone else has to
yeah.
follow that path as well. And a little caveat is like, sometimes you have, working in some places, you have obligations to do things, and I feel like it's a bit demeaning about someone else. Is like, oh, I'm doing it for 9 hours, so you can do for 20. And like,
Yeah.
it's still uncomfortable for both of us, so we just try not to
Yeah.
bypass both of us or gaslight each other because of obligation that we had no say in.
Mhm.
We had position to it. We are having the big plan of this podcast and making it quite digestible, something that you can do in one go. So we are aiming around 20 and maybe 30 minutes. We're probably around the 30 minutes now. Is there anything that you'd like to say to wrap up this conversation?
Well, this conversation will be continued. But something
Agreed.
that is in my mind to say is that this is a very interesting piece to look at when it comes to relationships. Whether you're a business owner creating relationships with clients, whether you're in partnership, whether you have friends, which we're all social creatures, so we need relationships in our life, is when you're coming to it at this angle where you're like, oh, I did this, so you should be able to do it. It doesn't do anything to build relationships. It repels them.
Mm.
And I'm sure whoever's listening can think of examples. I think the most common one is like grandparents or parents who are like, back in my day, I used to walk to school in the snow. So,
What is a little bit of snow?
yeah, and like when you hear that, you don't feel good. Like you're like, I don't want to hug grandpa anymore. Like I don't want to hug him goodbye when I leave for school. You know
I'm
what I mean?
pissed.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it reminds me of something I was watching something on Netflix, and the person's like, if I can do it, everyone can do it. I was like, but really? Is it everyone couldn't do it? Or everyone in your current circumstances could do it
Yeah.
with a little bit of help. And there's nothing wrong to ask for help anyway. I like what you just shared. Yeah, it's just like creating all about unfiltered awareness is all about awareness. And this is a great piece to talk about, to bring awareness into, are you being sometimes spiritual bypassing yourself, or someone that you know, or even a client. And the thing is, it's not that happens, and like, and we're not there to be like coming in with a stick and like hit you in the head of like you did something wrong.
Yeah.
The only person that you have to forgive is yourself, but also to the path of forgiveness is also holding up to it, asking for
Hmm.
forgiveness to the people that you've done. If you really remember and acknowledge that this happened, sometimes you
Hmm.
cannot remember that happened, but if someone were to come to you and sometimes say, this happened from you, you have to take ownership to that. And it's like, oh, yes, that probably would have been the case. Thank you for highlighting it. That will be in my forefront for next time.
Hmm. Yes.
And not doing it online on social media, you
Yeah.
know, saying, "Oh, I've done something wrong with clients," but not naming them and not even coming
Yeah.
to them privately and saying that, "I'm sorry."
Yeah. Social media is not a diary. And we will continue this conversation in part
Yes.
2. Thank you for tuning in to Unfiltered Awareness. If you enjoy this episode and you want to support the podcast, you can do so by rating and reviewing us on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. You can follow our podcast YouTube channel, which is linked below. You can also find us individually on Instagram. You can find Lucie at callme.lucie, and you can find Cilia at selfexpressedbabe. Both of those are linked in the caption below. Thank you again for listening, and we will see you next time.